Chapter 461, 264. Rare 8th Order. Epic Level Creature, _2. Lindsay, I can't understand why I can keep pace with you now when my evolutionary talent has always been far inferior to yours ever since we were children. Shen Qinghan, with her peach blossom eyes brimming with moisture, looked at Lin Zikan and asked such a question. Lin Zikan replied without hesitation, perhaps it's because as you've grown older, your special physique has further developed. Shen Qinghan nodded in agreement, then spoke again, then what about you, Lindsay? Why is your evolutionary talent so incredible? I can't figure it out. Maybe it's a gene mutation. Lin Zikan didn't know how to explain to Shen Qinghan that he was actually a transmigrator with a cheat system, so he could only brush it off with gene mutation. Shen Qinghan did not doubt Lin Zikan's words. She had trusted Lin Zikan wholeheartedly ever since they were young and felt that Lin Zikan would definitely not lie to her. If Lin Zikan was going to deceive her, she hoped it would be for a lifetime. Lindsay, do you think maybe you also have some sort of special inheritance like me, but you just don't know it? Shen Qinghan's eyes twinkled as she suddenly voiced this speculation. Lin Zikan didn't immediately answer the question, but fell into deep thought. Special inheritance? Does the system count as an inheritance? It doesn't seem like it. Also, the extent of mine and Han Han's evolutionary progression seems to be incredibly huge. Just by consuming a dozen or so rare-level exotic fruits, our biological level directly rose by 3. For others, it might be hard to even increase by 1 level. Han Han's significant change in evolutionary progression is because she has the water god's inheritance. But what about me? Why can my evolutionary progress be so vast? Among the biometric attributes awarded by the system, there is nothing that enhances the magnitude of evolutionary progression. Could it be as Han Han suggested, I do have an inheritance within me that I just don't know about? Say, physical sanctification? Lin Zikan's thoughts were myriad. In the blink of an eye, a half-month passed by. In the past half-month, nobody from the city ventured out except for those whose jobs required them to explore. Everyone remained in the city to recuperate. Although the previous battle ended quite quickly, there were still many powerful beings who were injured and needed time to recover. During this period, Qin Chuan brought evolution resources to Lin Zikan and Shen Qinghan. For Shen Qinghan, he brought water attribute evolution resources, like netherworld red spider lilies, dusk water fairy herbs, ice crystal demon butterfly cocoons, and so on. For Lin Zikan, he brought exotic beast meat that could strengthen the body, like the heart of a blood Kylan, blood flame phoenix feathers, 9 revolutions blood Ganoderma, abyss blood ginseng, and so forth. This was to treat the geniuses favorably. Before leaving, Qin Chuan tried to use his spiritual power to probe into Shen Qinghan's sea of consciousness again, but like last time, he was instantly struck by a spiritual attack that caused bleeding from his 7 orifices and severely wounded his soul. Having failed twice in short succession, he dared not to probe Shen Qinghan's sea of consciousness again for some time. The spiritual attack emanating from the water god palace within Shen Qinghan's sea of consciousness was truly terrifying. Even him, with a biological level high as a high-order legendary, could not bear it. After Qin Chuan's departure, Lin Zikan and Shen Qinghan immediately consumed the evolution resources he had brought them. After consuming these resources, Lin Zikan and Shen Qinghan evolved to a higher biological level. The former evolved from rare 6th order to rare 8th order. The latter evolved from rare 5th order to rare 6th order. While the latter's biological level only increased by 1, her spiritual power strength gained a boost that far exceeded 1 level, and her sea of consciousness expanded further, becoming even more vast and boundless. So this is rare 8th order. Lin Zikan looked at his biological level, his face a picture of disbelief. Since coming to Origin Land, evolution had become as simple as drinking water, one could say it was as easy as having hands. Back on Earth, he had struggled for a long time just to reach ordinary 9th order. But in Origin Land, it hadn't even been a full year, and his biological level had evolved to rare 8th order, only 2 levels away from becoming an epic level creature. Compared to before, it was like day and night. Time flies swiftly. Without paying attention, several days had passed. This morning, just as the sky began to brighten, Qin Chuan, as the city lord, announced through a voice transmission from his office that starting today, the city will open the biological channel for returning to Earth, and those in need could apply to the office director for permission to visit their families back on Earth. After every great war, Qin Chuan would arrange for this opportunity to visit families back on Earth, as a way to soothe the emotions of the city's inhabitants. Most people in the city had families back on Earth, with loved ones they yearned for. Allowing these soldiers who survived the Great War to visit Earth was the best way to ease their hearts. In the dormitory, Shen Qinghan, upon hearing Qin Chuan's announcement, immediately opened her eyes and said to Lin Zikan, who was on top of her, "It's been almost a month since we saw our parents, should we apply to go back to Earth as well?" Only having stayed in Origin Land for a month, Lin Zikan felt there was no need to go back. But seeing how homesick Shen Qinghan was, he considered it for a moment and finally said, "Then let's apply to go back for a trip. I also want to see how my sister is doing." His sister, Lin Xiying's physique, was even more heaven-defying than his own when he was young. He was curious, after 1 month, to what extent had Lin Xiying developed? Can run and jump? Can speak and sing? Or possibly solve Olympiad math problems? Thinking it all over, he felt he might be going a little crazy. His sister, Lin Xiying, now fully calculated, was only 2 months old, so how could she be so extraordinarily gifted? Afternoon. Lin Zikan and Shen Qinghan had a nap and went to the office full of energy to apply for a return to Earth. During the application, the office director looked over the information of both, frowning slightly, and said, "Lin and Shen, it has only been a month since you two last returned to Earth, and now you want to apply again. This is a bit against the rules." Hearing that, Shen Qinghan felt uncomfortable. She forgot that one must stay in the origin land for at least 3 months before applying to return to Earth. "In that case, we'll come back to apply again in 2 months. Lin Zikan said indifferently, then turned around with Shen Qinghan and started to leave. He wasn't actually that keen on returning to Earth right away, waiting another 2 months was no problem for him. "Wait a second." The office director, seeing Lin Zikan and Shen Qinghan about to leave, quickly called out to them. Lin Zikan and Shen Qinghan stopped, looked back at the office director with puzzlement, not knowing what the matter was. The office director stood up from his seat and said with a smile, "According to the regulations, indeed, you have to stay for 3 months before you can apply to return to Earth. But, you know, rules are dead, but people are alive. If you two really want to go back, I can bend the rules a little for you, but you'll need to keep it low-key and not publicize it." The office director was offering to give Lin Zikan and Shen Qinghan a shortcut, consenting to their application to return to Earth. When Shen Qinghan heard this, her beautiful face showed surprise. Lin Zikan wasn't surprised at all. As a top-tier genius, he had been spoiled by people around him since childhood, and now being favored by the office director in the origin land was only to be expected. After all, the evolutionary talent he had shown during his time in the origin land far surpassed the understanding of anyone in the city. Such a top-tier genius was bound to evolve into a legendary-level creature someday and become a pillar of Earth. Even, there was a possibility of evolving into a mythical-level creature, able to move unchallenged in the origin land. Any sensible person would try their best to please such a genius. After a few minutes, Lin Zikan and Shen Qinghan completed their application to visit their relatives on Earth. After the application, the two didn't linger and quickly left the office, hurrying back to Earth to visit their relatives. Lin Zikan was really curious about his 2-month-old sister, Lin Xiying. Shouldn't the water god appear in the eastern region? How did it appear in the southern domain? The southern domain is clearly the territory of the wood god. Green Hill's ancient mountain was attacked. After the Great War, by regulation, people took turns to return to Earth to visit their families. Several months later, Lin Zikan and Shen Qinghan made a trip back to Earth. They found out that many people had died. When city number 1 was attacked, other cities were under attack as well. Many people perished. Many people they knew had died. The president of the student union, Zhou Suihong, died. Ma Zhenhe became a vegetative state. Yuan Dongji was also seriously injured and was recuperating at home. Later, the counterattack on the origin land. All kinds of climaxes, the male lead slaughtering at will, lots of resources. After that, the situation turned around in an instant, and they were defeated by the origin land. Lin Zikan single-handedly defended the lonely city, protecting Shen Qinghan. P.S. Setting out my bowl, begging for monthly pass recommendations. Chapter 462, 265, My Sister Walks Briskly. Zhang Wangzhen's physique. Origin land, Green Hill's ancient mountain. The previously tranquil and peaceful forest was now chaotic, with incessant noise. Wherever one looked, black fog spread and thorny vines covered the ground. Elder Tree, Lord of Silence, I welcome you to visit my Green Hill's ancient mountain, but summoning so many thorny vines and filling my mountain with black fog, what is the meaning of this? A graceful nine-tailed fox woman hovered high in front of the two unwelcome powerful visitors, her voice soft as water as she questioned them. Although she was questioning them, her voice did not carry a trace of anger, making those who listened feel immensely refreshed. It means nothing special. We just want to borrow the fox women of your Green Hill's ancient mountain to aid the living beings of the land of Oblivion in enhancing their strength through dual cultivation. The man known as the Lord of Silence spoke, his voice hoarse and lifeless. Hearing these words, the mountain lord of Green Hill's ancient mountain, who was the soft-voiced nine-tailed fox woman, suddenly had a somber expression on her face. No longer soft and gentle, her gaze turned icy, readying herself for a great battle. Mountain Lord, there is no need to be so hostile towards us. We won't just borrow your fox women for nothing. We will exchange them for equivalent evolution resources. A man in a green robe spoke amiably to the mountain lord of Green Hill's Fox Mountain. This man was Elder Tree of the Sun Moon Sacred Land, a mythical level creature who had lived for countless epochs and whose formidable strength allowed him to dominate the origin land, ranking at the very top of the combatants there. My Green Hill's ancient mountain is self-sufficient. We don't need the evolution resources from the Sun Moon Sacred Land. The mountain lord of Green Hill's ancient mountain refused without hesitation. Elder Tree still smiled, won't you reconsider? No. Please leave. Sumai Xiao, the mountain lord of Green Hill's ancient mountain, spoke with firm decisiveness. Hearing such a response, Elder Tree's smile faded, his expression turning cold. The next second. Hum. 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 Accompanied by a whooshing sound, countless poisonous, spiked thorns soared into the sky at a speed undetectable even by divine sense, and shot towards Sumai Xiao in the sky. The path of the thorns left striking fissures in the air, exposing a pitch-black, lifeless void. As the thorns soared, the surrounding black fog also thickened suddenly, dark as ink, quickly rising into the sky and beginning to rain down black rain. Seeing Elder Tree and Lord of Silence erupt into action without a word of consensus, Sumai Xiao knew she could not avoid today's calamity. Thus, with a resolute heart, she sacrificed the vast origin force contained within her divine sense, instantly activating the massively consuming mountain protection array to defend against the joint attack of Elder Tree and Lord of Silence. The moment the mountain protection array activated, numerous beams of purple light rose from the ground and instantly formed a layer of purple light membrane, blocking the incoming thorns and black rain outside the mountain. Seeing this, Elder Tree and Lord of Silence immediately increased the intensity of their attacks and enchanted their offensive means. Hum. 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 The thorns, swirling with mysterious runes and able to tear through space, shot towards the light membrane like chains that hauled souls. The dense black fog quickly rose high into the sky, forming a storm cloud of tribulation that covered the entire Green Hills ancient mountain in darkness. Then, it violently struck down a pillar of lightning bright enough to illuminate the whole mountain. Boom! A thunderous sound exploded. The thorns and lightning pillar simultaneously struck the protective light membrane of Green Hills ancient mountain, setting off a terrifying backlash that shook the entire southern domain, with smoke billowing everywhere. A moment later, the smoke cleared. The light membrane above Green Hills ancient mountain was unharmed, only slightly faded in color. The fading was minimal, almost imperceptible without close inspection. To be able to block our attacks, this protective array of Green Hills ancient mountain is something. Lord of Silence, with a vacant gaze, said as he looked at the light membrane below. Elder Tree chuckled lightly. After all, it's an array set by that old man from the eastern region, its strength is acceptable. After saying this, he added, but it's only just acceptable. As long as we continue attacking continuously, this so-called protective mountain array won't last long. Lord of Silence agreed with this and quickly launched another attack on the light membrane below, intending to seize Green Hills ancient mountain as early as possible to avoid any unforeseen changes. Elder Tree, noticing this, also joined in attacking. Boom! 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 The sound of origin force exploding on the light membrane rang out, one after the other. The light on the light membrane was visibly dimming. As time passed, the light membrane was bound to rupture and shatter. Sumai Xiao, inside the light membrane, could only continuously consume origin force to fortify the light membrane. But she was well aware that she wouldn't be able to hold out for long. If she wanted to protect Green Hills ancient mountain, she had to secure a powerful ally before the light membrane broke. Thinking this, she immediately transmitted a message with a thought to her most trusted holy maiden. Juju, leave the ancient mountain through the teleportation array in my room, go to the eastern region and find that old man for support. Tell him that Sun Moon Sacred Land and Land of Oblivion intend to seize Green Hills ancient mountain and ask him to hurry over. While she was transmitting the message to the holy maiden, outside the mountain protection array, Elder Tree, while attacking the light membrane with all his might, said to Lord of Silence, by the way, when I controlled an avatar to attack Earth City No. 1, I discovered something strange. Chapter 463, 265, My Sister Walks Briskly. Zhang Wangzhen's physique, _2. Lord of Silence, what strange happenings. Elder Tree, the water god is suspected to have been resurrected, and the place of resurrection is near City No. 1. The Lord of Silence frowned slightly. The water god is one of the oldest deities in the eastern region, born and obliterated there. If it were to resurrect, it should be in the eastern region. How could it possibly resurrect in the southern domain? The voice of Elder Tree, ancient and full of vicissitude, said, that's why I said it was a strange happening. After successfully taking down Green Hills ancient mountain, go back to the Land of Oblivion and use the myriad life compass to observe the celestial patterns at night, and see how the elements are aligning. Earth. Shanghai University. Family Quarters. Lin Zikan turned his head to look at Shen Qinghan beside him and asked, are you sure you don't want to go home and see your parents first? I want to see Ying Ying first. Shen Qinghan said, her clear and beautiful eyes sparkling. Lin Zikan teased her, you always come to my house first when you return. If your parents knew, they would probably be jealous and not feel too good about it. They won't be. My parents are very generous. Love is selfish. Ah, you're so annoying. Shen Qinghan couldn't take it anymore and didn't want to deal with Lin Zikan, the pest. Seeing that she was annoyed, Lin Zikan stopped teasing her. Soon, the two of them pushed open the door of their home, skillfully changed into the slippers on the rack by the door, and headed to the living room at a calm pace. As soon as they entered the living room, they saw a baby girl wearing a diaper running around the room. Running very fast. As energetic as a 5 or 6-year-old child. However, this baby girl was only 2 months old at the time. Lindsay Ying is amazing, being able to walk and run so vigorously at just 2 months old. This physical talent is really too exaggerated, as if she's like those divine children with natural holy bodies in mythological stories. Shen Qinghan watched the baby girl running around the room, her pretty face filled with shock and disbelief. Lin Zikan was equally shocked. Although he had thought before returning home that his sister might be able to walk and run by now, the sight still deeply shook him when he saw it with his own eyes, making it feel incredibly unreal. At that moment, Lin Ziying, who was running around the room, noticed the two standing in the hallway. The instant she saw them, she stood still for a moment in dismay, and then her little mouth opened wide and she burst into loud wailing. Only 2 months old, she had long forgotten who Lin Zikan and Shen Qinghan were. For a 2-month-old infant, anyone who hasn't been seen for over 3 days is a stranger, and seeing them would result in crying from fear. Both Lin Zikan and Shen Qinghan didn't expect Lin Ziying to cry. The moment the crying started, the two were completely dumbfounded, momentarily at a loss for what to do. Soon, hurried footsteps came from a room to the side. Then, the indulgent voice of Zhang Wangzhen sounded. "Baby, what's wrong?" As her voice rang out, Zhang Wangzhen, dressed in her pajamas, appeared before Lin Zikan and Shen Qinghan. Seeing her mother, Lin Ziying stopped crying and ran over, bumping straight into Zhang Wangzhen's legs and reaching up for a hug. "Good baby, don't cry, don't cry." Zhang Wangzhen picked up Lin Ziying in her arms and kissed her chubby little face. Comforted by her mother's love, Lin Ziying soon stopped crying and just lay on Zhang Wangzhen's shoulder sucking her thumb. "Mom, Han Han and I are back to see you," Lin Zikan said with a smile as he stepped forward upon seeing that Zhang Wangzhen hadn't noticed him yet. Upon hearing his voice, Zhang Wangzhen finally saw Lin Zikan and Shen Qinghan standing in the hallway. The face of the mature woman instantly lit up with joy. But soon, the joy turned into playful reprimand. "You two really know how to surprise people. Why don't you call ahead every time you come back? Do you enjoy making a surprise attack like this? We wanted to give you a surprise, Mom." "Surprise, hey? More like a scare. Look. Your little sister was scared into crying by you too," Zhang Wangzhen said with a hint of irritation. After that, she asked another question, "Have you two eaten yet?" "Not yet," Lin Zikan replied. Zhang Wangzhen, while gently swaying Lin Ziying in her arms, asked, "What would you like to eat? I'll make you something right now." "No need, Mom, you already have enough on your plate taking care of Ying every day. Han Han and I can cook." Lin Zikan felt very affectionate towards Zhang Wangzhen and didn't want her to overwork herself. Zhang Wangzhen shrugged it off, "Your sister is just a bit more tearful and prone to wetting the bed, but in all other respects she's as sensible as you were when you were little. She doesn't tire me out at all, quite the opposite, she's a relief to your father and me." Lin Zikan replied, "Just the crying and the wetting alone sound exhausting. Mom, please have a seat. I'll cook with Han Han and prepare something nice for you." Fearing Zhang Wangzhen might refuse, Lin Zikan quickly added, "Han Han and I brought back a lot of special ingredients from the origin land, and those are things you wouldn't know how to deal with." Seeing her son insisting on cooking, Zhang Wangzhen couldn't object and let her son and future daughter-in-law take over the kitchen. "By the way, where's Dad?" Lin Zikan realized Lin Yanzheng was not at home and asked curiously. Zhang Wangzhen explained, "Your dad went to a yearly conference. The book he wrote this year has done quite well, so he's been invited to Capital City for the conference. He won't be back for a couple of days." Lin Zikan smiled, "Then Dad's missing out, not being able to taste the meal Han Han and I are making." Zhang Wangzhen didn't pick up on that, but instead spoke softly to Lin Ziying cradled in her arms, "Baby, this is your brother Zi Chen and sister-in-law Han Han." You were so clingy to them last month, how could you forget them so quickly? Watching this scene unfold, Lin Zikin couldn't help but flash a nostalgic smile. He remembered when he was a baby, Zhang Wangzhen would hold him and talk to him with the same tender words all day long. In the blink of an eye, 20 years had passed. He had grown up. And his mother, Zhang Wangzhen, had visibly aged. Though she still looked beautiful, the lines on her face were much more pronounced. No longer as fresh-faced as she was in her 20s. Mom has gotten older. No, I can't let Mom grow old. From now on, I have to collect more exotic flowers and fruits with beautifying and anti-aging properties to keep Mom forever young. And for Dad, I should get some that can strengthen and invigorate the body. Lin Zikin thought to himself silently. After a short while, Lin Zikin and Shen Qinghan quickly got to cooking in the kitchen. About an hour later, the food was ready. 4 dishes and 1 soup. 2 meat, 2 vegetarian. During the meal, Zhang Wangzhen couldn't stop praising the food, saying Lin Zikin and Shen Qinghan's cooking skills were fantastic and that she would love to eat their cooking every day. Shen Qinghan kept serving Zhang Wangzhen, declaring that as long as she was home, she'd take over the cooking. Zhang Wangzhen beamed with joy, growing even fonder of Shen Qinghan, who might not be her daughter, but became a daughter-like future daughter-in-law. On the other hand, Lin Zikin kept an eye on his sister Lin Ziying the entire time. The 2-month-old sister was eating like a famished wolf. Holding a spoon in one hand and shoveling food non-stop into her mouth, while biting into a braised exotic beast leg from time to time with the other hand. Energetic and agile. Prone to tears and bedwetting. With a hearty appetite. She seemed like someone simple-minded with a strong physique. But then again, she's only 2 months old, what's there to say about her mind? Lin Zikin's thoughts were running wild with all of these notions. As he pondered, he became increasingly puzzled and confused. Both parents are ordinary people, how did they end up having children like me and my sister, with such incredible evolutionary talents? Could it really be gene mutation? But even mutations don't usually occur consecutively in 2 children, the probability is too low, practically 0. Is there a possibility that Mom and Dad are actually hidden masters, disguised as ordinary people? Thinking this, Lin Zikin immediately extended his spiritual power to probe Zhang Wangzhen's body to see if there was anything unusual about it. Soon, Lin Zikin's spiritual power entered Zhang Wangzhen's body and slowly roamed around inside her. Based on his previous speculations, he extended his spirit to investigate his parents to see if there was anything remarkable about their bodies. Why else would they have 2 children who are top-tier geniuses? Checking the physical condition of the parents. P.S. Begging bowl out, seeking monthly passes and recommendation votes. Chapter 464, 267. Not simple parents. Children of the abyss. From the top part of the brain, to the upper body, and then to the lower half of the body. Lin Zikin carefully inspected Zhang Wangzhen's body, looking to see if the great mother of his and Lin Ziying's possessed anything special that allowed her to give birth to 2 geniuses with sky-defying evolutionary talents. After a meticulous inspection, Lin Zikin found that Zhang Wangzhen's body was very ordinary, with nothing special about it. Ordinary qi blood strength. Ordinary spiritual strength. All attribute values were quite ordinary. Was she really just an ordinary person? Lin Zikin muttered to himself, not surprised by the result of the inspection. He and Zhang Wangzhen had lived under the same roof for so long, if Zhang Wangzhen were some hidden master, he would have noticed something fishy by now. Especially during his infancy. Because no hidden master would act in front of an infant. There was absolutely no need for that. Just as Lin Zikin concluded that his biological mother, Zhang Wangzhen, was an ordinary person. Suddenly, the spiritual power he left within Zhang Wangzhen sensed an extremely terrifying energy entity. This energy entity was located in the deepest part of the brain, also known as the Sea of Consciousness. What was this? After perceiving the vastness of the energy entity, Lin Zikin was somewhat stunned. The sea of consciousness in ordinary people is almost negligible. Yet at this moment, Zhang Wangzhen's sea of consciousness harbored such vast energy, which he found hard to believe. A moment later, after regaining his composure, Lin Zikin immediately focused his spiritual power and slowly penetrated Zhang Wangzhen's sea of consciousness to see what was actually going on inside. The invasion process was very slow. He was afraid that moving too quickly might damage Zhang Wangzhen's sea of consciousness. However, this concern turned into shock in the next second. As his spiritual power entered Zhang Wangzhen's sea of consciousness, Lin Zikin saw a scene so shocking that he would never forget it for the rest of his life. Zhang Wangzhen's sea of consciousness was boundless, so vast that it went beyond his understanding, and instead of water, it was filled with hard and smooth ice blocks, resembling a lake covered with ice in winter. But unlike a winter lake merely covered with a thick layer of ice on the surface, Zhang Wangzhen's sea of consciousness was iced to the bottom, the entire sea being thick ice blocks. No. Not ice blocks. They were source crystals. Mother's sea of consciousness was a boundless, giant source crystal. Lin Zikin suddenly realized this and was so shocked he could barely cope. His mouth hung open unconsciously, his eyes widened and filled with disbelief. How elevated must a creature be to possess such a large source crystal? And isn't the source crystal a product of origin land? How could there be source crystals in Mother's sea of consciousness? Could it be did Mom come from origin land? The more Lin Zikin thought about it, the more shocked he became, struggling to come to terms with this revelation. Seeing the shocked expression on his face, Zhang Wangzhen asked in perplexity, "Son, why are you suddenly gaping and widening your eyes, what's going on?" "It's nothing." Lin Zikin, snapped back to reality at the sound of her voice, replied nonchalantly. After speaking, he hesitated for a moment, but couldn't help asking, "Mom, when you were young, were you a damsel in distress from a very powerful and influential family?" Zhang Wangzhen, somewhat bewildered by the question, retorted after a moment of confusion, "What nonsense are you talking about? Besides having a pretty face, I am very ordinary in all other aspects." Lin Zikin then asked, "What did my maternal grandparents do?" Zhang Wangzhen pulled out a tissue to wipe Lin Ziying's mouth, then responded nonchalantly, "Your grandparents were just ordinary farmers, they passed away from illness when I was very young." "I see." Lin Zikin sank into thought, feeling that Zhang Wangzhen was still deceiving him, he just couldn't believe she was an ordinary person. Thinking this over, he further inquired, "What about Dad, what was his family situation like when he was young?" Zhang Wangzhen, puzzled, asked, "What's gotten into you today, asking all these inexplicable questions?" As soon as she finished, she added, "Son, did you watch the movie The Claw Machine, thinking your parents are trying to test you, train you, and so deliberately pretending to be poor, making you live a hard life from a young age?" Lin Zikin smiled and said, "No, I was just asking casually." After dinner, Lin Zikin and Shen Qinghan took a bath, washed up together, and went to bed. First to sleep for physical exertion, then to sleep for energy recovery. Lin Zikin wasn't tired and didn't sleep. He simply lay quietly, eyes opened, staring at the ceiling. He continually recalled scenes from his childhood deep in his mind, looking to see if he could find any clues that would prove his parents weren't ordinary people. After recalling for a while, Lin Zikin ultimately felt disappointed. The memories of his parents were always very ordinary, with not a single unusual aspect. They would get sick, lose sleep, get angry. They were just an ordinary pair of parents. The only unusual thing was having a son with an evolutionary talent strong enough to defy the heavens. With no clues at all, could his parents really be ordinary people? But what about that huge source crystal in Mom's sea of consciousness? Lin Zikin couldn't solve this puzzle no matter how much he pondered. The more he thought, the more confused he became, unable to distinguish whether his parents were ordinary people or hidden masters. "Lin Zi, why did you ask Aunt Xin such strange questions during dinner?" Shen Qinghan hadn't fallen asleep either, turned over to face Lin Zikan, her delicate face full of curiosity. Lin Zikan didn't hide from her, quickly pouring out all the doubts in his heart. You might not believe what I'm about to say. During dinner earlier, I was scanning my mom's body with spiritual power and I discovered her sea of consciousness is boundlessly vast and entirely composed of source crystals, like a giant iceberg. Chapter 465, 267, Not Simple Parents. Children of the Abyss, _2. Ah! Shen Qinghan was a bit confused and asked, aren't source crystals unique to the origin land? How come Ant Xin Sea of Consciousness is full of source crystals? Lin Zikan shook his head, I can't make sense of it either, that's why I went out of my way to ask my mom those strange questions during dinner, to see if she was a hidden expert. Shen Qinghan still couldn't digest this fact. Ant Xin Sea of Consciousness is vast and boundless, and it's composed entirely of source crystals? What's the situation? Just who exactly is Ant Xin? As she pondered, Shen Qinghan quickly thought of Lin Zikan's evolutionary talent. I knew it, how can Lin Zi's evolutionary talent be so exaggerated? It turns out to be inherited. Ant Xin is definitely not ordinary. Wait a minute. What about me? Lin Zi's genius can be traced, but what about me? Why is my physique so special? Could it be that my parents are also not ordinary? With this thought, Shen Qinghan immediately spoke up and asked Lin Zikan, Lin Zi, do you think my parents could also be in the same situation, with seas of consciousness that are vast and boundless, composed entirely of source crystals? Very likely. Lin Zikan gave such an answer and then continued, when you go home tonight, you can try to spread your spiritual power to check your parents' seas of consciousness. After my dad comes back in a couple of days, I'll also spread my spiritual power to sense what his sea of consciousness is like. Shen Qinghan suddenly thought of a problem. If Ant Xin's entire sea of consciousness is made up of source crystals, it definitely means she's very powerful. Logically speaking, when you spread your spiritual power to immerse into Ant Xin's body, she should have been able to detect it immediately and then stop it with a mere thought. So why didn't Ant Xin stop your spiritual power from invading just now? This question of Shen Qinghan's hit the nail on the head and temporarily stumped Lin Zikan. Indeed, if Mom is a hidden expert, then with the size of her sea of consciousness, she should be able to easily stop my spiritual power from invading. But from beginning to end, Mom didn't make any move. What's going on? Certainly, Mom can't be an ordinary person given that an ordinary person's sea of consciousness couldn't possibly be that large, nor entirely composed of source crystals. There must be some unknown secret behind this. That evening, Shen Qinghan went home to accompany Shen Jianyi and Su Meng. Not long after she got back, she sent a message to Lin Zikan on WeChat, saying that she just used her spiritual power to check her parents' seas of consciousness. The results were astonishing. Both Shen Jianyi and Su Meng had seas of consciousness that were vast and boundless, also made up of source crystals. 2 nights later, Lin Yanzheng, who had gone to the capital city to attend the writers' annual meeting, returned. Seeing his father, who he hadn't seen in a while, the first thing Lin Zikan did was to spread his spiritual power to invade his father's body, carefully inspecting every corner. In the end, the results were as expected. Lin Yanzhen's sea of consciousness was also as vast and boundless as the other 3, composed entirely of source crystals. With this, it seemed that the parents on both sides were not simple. Realizing this, Lin Zikan spent the following days deliberately observing the 4 of them, hoping to find some clues to prove their parents' identities as hidden experts. Unfortunately, after observing for several days, the parents from both sides seemed very ordinary, showing no signs of having seas of consciousness made up of source crystals. Seeing that observing got them nowhere, eventually, he chose to confront both sets of parents, revealing their seas of consciousness situation and asking them to explain what exactly was going on. Facing his sudden confrontation, both sets of parents were completely bewildered, indicating they didn't understand what he was asking. They genuinely seemed to not understand, without a hint of feigning ignorance. This scene left both Lin Zikin and Shen Qinghan somewhat confused. In their expectations, when confronted with the mention of their seas of consciousness, their parents should have shown disbelief, not expecting their secrets to be discovered, and then chosen to be truthful. But the reality was, the parents looked more confused than each other, not understanding what seas of consciousness were, much less what source crystals were. Days passed by. Before one knew it, it was the 7th day since Lin Zikin and Shen Qinghan returned to Earth. That morning, they heard some unfortunate news. When the number 1 city was attacked by the Sun Moon Sacred Land and Land of Oblivion, other cities within the Origin Land were also attacked, including the number 36 city located beneath Shanghai City. When number 36 city was attacked, most of Shanghai City's powerhouses were sent to aid. Yuan Dongji went. Lu Chuanyu went. Song Yuan went. Ma Zhenhe went. Practically everyone with a biological level ranking as high went into the Origin Land, to number 36 city to withstand the attack from the Sun Moon Sacred Land and Land of Oblivion. During this time, the relatively weak number 36 city was almost taken over, with many casualties. Zhou Suihong, the former president of Shanghai University's Student Council, died. Ma Zhenhe, the current dean of Evolution College at Shanghai University, died. Yuan Dongji was seriously injured and has been unconscious, bedridden, and recuperating in his family's home. Lu Chuanyu was also severely wounded. His already frail soul was significantly harmed, and he spent half his days waking up with splitting headaches, living in a state worse than death, also recuperating in Yuan Dongji's family home. Song Yuan was rather lucky. She only suffered minor injuries in the Origin Land and was not seriously harmed. In the bathroom, Lin Zikin and Shen Qinghan bathed together in the bathtub, both nude. While soaking, Shen Qinghan suggested, "Since Master and the Dean are so badly injured, why don't we go visit them tomorrow?" Lin Zikin had no objections. He thought it was a good suggestion and nodded, "Then tomorrow morning, we'll visit Principal Yuan and the Dean." Shen Qinghan pushed her wet bangs aside and said in a soft voice, "Lin Zi, you're so powerful now. Your biological level is almost at the epic level. Maybe if you visit Master tomorrow, you could even heal him and the Dean." Lin Zikin was speechless. "You're thinking too much. I've just reached a slightly higher biological level. I'm not Huatuo reincarnated. How could I just heal them like that?" Soon after, the two finished their bath and left the bathroom. Back in the room, they began to skillfully deepen their relationship. And this went on for the entire night. If Shen Qinghan hadn't been so tolerant, they probably would have kept Zhang Wangzhen in the next room awake all night. It was around 4 o'clock in the morning. They finally stopped deepening their relationship and curled up together under the covers to sleep. For some reason, Lin Zikin suddenly felt very tired. His eyes had barely closed for 2 seconds before he fell into a deep sleep and began to dream. In the dream, Lin Zikin slowly opened his eyes to find himself in a strange environment so dark that he couldn't see his hand in front of his face. "What is this place? Why am I here?" Lin Zikin, not realizing he was in a dream, frowned and looked warily around. Suddenly, buzz! A scarlet giant butterfly flew by, entering the Origin Land, venturing out of the city to seek evolution resources. The Green Hills ancient mountain was destroyed, and Sujuja escaped. Being chased. Encountering Lin Zikin. Completing the task through mutually beneficial symbiosis. Even with an achievement, Lin Zikin didn't want to save her because it was too dangerous. He wanted to run away. Then Shen Qinghan said, "The fox woman saved us on Earth before, let's save her too." So Lin Zikin went to save her. Lin Zikin's strength was astonishing. It shocked her. Forming a mutually beneficial symbiosis with the fox demon. The city's insiders learned of the infighting and thought it was good news. They decided to help escort Sujija to the eastern region to notify that old man. Could it be a trap? Some were worried. Others argued that it was worth the risk even if it was a trap. Qin Chuan went to escort her. Later on, they counterattacked the origin land. All sorts of climaxes, the protagonist killing indiscriminately, all kinds of resources. After that, the situation flipped suddenly, and they were defeated by the forces of the origin land, routing them completely. Lin Zikan single-handedly guarded the lonely city, protecting Shen King Han. City number 1. In the end, he escaped into the abyss with Shen King Han. Later on, the protagonist used the creatures of the abyss to kill either legendary level experts or mythical level experts. The protagonist, backed by the abyss, became the abyss master. P.S. I'm begging here, please give me a monthly pass recommendation. Chapter 466, 268. Lin Zikan's identity. Son of the Abyss. Lin Zikan looked up at the abyssal giant butterfly. It was 5 meters long and 10 meters wide. Its body was covered with a cold, crimson glow. The edges of its mouth parts were filled with thick, sharp fangs. The vitality within it was very weak, so weak that it was almost imperceptible, and there was no biological pressure, like a walking corpse. However, its extremely fast flying speed proved that it possessed immense vitality and a very high biological level. This form of life was very peculiar, quite different from any known creatures. So was this the abyss? The so-called life-forbidden zone of the abyss. As Lin Zikan quietly stared at the abyssal giant butterfly soaring above, he spread his spiritual power to probe into its body, sensing its life structure, while pondering these thoughts. While he watched the abyssal giant butterfly, it too slowed its flying speed, circling slowly above as it watched him. After a moment of staring, 2 antennae on top of the abyssal giant butterfly began to emit light dots like grains of sand, decorating the dark nothingness, resembling a cosmic star chart, extremely spectacular and beautiful. Seeing the abyssal giant butterfly suddenly emitting numerous unknown light dots, Lin Zikan immediately tensed up, fearing it was an attack methodology of the creature. Just as his nerves were stretched to breaking point. Buzz! 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 The sharp sounds of air being torn apart rang out one after another from the distance. The next second, dozens, hundreds of abyssal giant butterflies emerged from the darkness, each one slowly circling above Lin Zikan's head. Each abyssal giant butterfly's body was covered in glowing veins, radiating pinpoints of starlight. Dozens, hundreds of glowing abyssal giant butterflies gathered together, forming a brilliant light enough to illuminate an entire street. However, even such a dazzling light could not illuminate the surrounding darkness. The surrounding environment remained pitch black, where one couldn't see their own hand in front of their face. Other than the glowing abyssal giant butterflies, there were no other reference points to be seen. Lin Zikan, while wary of the circling abyssal giant butterflies above, frowned and surveyed the surrounding darkness that remained all-encompassing. He suddenly felt that this pitch-black environment, where he couldn't see his own hand, was familiar, as if he had seen it somewhere before. After carefully thinking, he realized that this dark environment looked exactly like the system's void, which displayed system text messages. Were these two related in some way? Could it be that the system's void was the abyss of the origin land? Again, the origin land. Again related to the origin land. Both parents' sea of consciousness was full of source crystals, and this system's void looked exactly like the abyss from the origin land. What exactly was going on? Lin Zikan was utterly baffled. Sizzle! 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 Suddenly, a gradual and increasing sound of rain barely began to echo. The light dots emitted by the abyssal giant butterfly poured down from the sky like rain, hitting the pitch dark below and sparking a dazzling light, then quickly vanished into nothingness. Lin Zikan below was hit by numerous falling light dots. Unlike when hitting the dark ground below, these light points, upon hitting Lin Zikan, did not vanish into nothingness. Instead, they transformed into an extremely dense energy, instantly flooding into his body, penetrating the deepest recesses of his brain into the sea of consciousness, and solidifying into a piece of crystal clear crystal. In the blink of an eye, his sea of consciousness, previously full of water, was now covered with crystals like blocks of ice. Lin Zikin took a closer look and was shocked to find the crystals in his sea of consciousness were all source crystals. What was happening? Were these abyssal giant butterflies above me transmitting origin force? Lin Zikin was stunned, unable to believe what was happening even as it transpired. Just as he tried to gather his thoughts. Crack! 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 Suddenly, his field of vision, like glass on the verge of shattering, abruptly filled with cracks. Before he could react, his vision shattered into pieces. On each fragment, his face was clearly reflected. Then, everything went black, and he lost consciousness instantaneously. Sizzle! 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 After an unknowable amount of time, Lin Zikin was awakened by the sound of clear rainfall. He opened his eyes groggily to find himself in his room. Shen Qinghan was sleeping soundly beside him, and it was raining lightly outside the window. Was that just a dream? Lin Zikin sat up from the bed, his head heavy as if he were drunk. He rubbed his temples, trying to recall the dream, feeling as though everything in it had been real. Source crystals? Were there source crystals in my sea of consciousness? Suddenly, Lin Zikin's eyes widened, his face filled with shock. He discovered source crystals in his own sea of consciousness. The same size. The same quantity. The same position. Just like in the dream. Could it be that it wasn't a dream, but rather, he had entered some kind of space? Could it be his parents' doing? Lin Zikin suddenly thought of this. Lin Yanzheng and Zhang Wangzhen's sea of consciousness also had source crystals, perhaps the dream he just had was related to them. Thinking this, Lin Zikin immediately spread his spiritual power into his parents' room, only to see a scene completely different from what he had imagined. His parents were both deeply asleep, showing no signs of having moved. The only one moving was his little sister Lin Ziying. This little one wasn't sleeping in the middle of the night but was sucking on her thumb while kicking her round, plump little legs restlessly. Chapter 467, 268. Lin Zikin's identity. Son of the Abyss, _2. Regarding the scene in his spiritual perception, Lin Zikin had fallen into deep thought. His parents looked like ordinary people, and it felt unlikely they were hidden experts. Perhaps, the reason their entire sea of consciousness was filled with source crystals was because they often dreamed of the abyssal giant butterflies. Right, when he woke up tomorrow morning, he would ask his parents if they had had any related dreams. After pondering these thoughts for a while, Lin Zikin was completely sleepless. He got out of bed, walked to the window, opened it, and sat cross-legged beside it, allowing the cool, rainy breeze to strike his acupoints. Now, after being nourished by several rare-level evolution resources, he had activated over 100 acupoints in his body. Specifically, 68 heart acupoints, 55 brain acupoints, and 59 body acupoints. Added together, the precise number was 182. He was now very close to activating half of the 366 acupoints in his body. Having activated half of his acupoints, his biological level was only at rare 8th order. He estimated that once they were all activated, the highest biological level would only be at legendary 1st order. If the limit was indeed legendary 1st order, then this pure-blood human path seemed somewhat useless. It definitely could not shoulder Lu Juanmu's claims of being the hope of humanity's future. Thus, once he had activated all his acupoints, there must be another path to further evolve. About an hour passed. The dim sky outside the window gradually brightened. Having spent several months in the origin land, Shen Qinghan had developed the habit of rising early. As soon as a ray of sunlight streamed through the window, she woke up on time, feeling extremely energized. When did you wake up? Shen Qinghan lifted her slender jade legs onto Lin Zikin's body, her voice sweet and teasing. Lin Zikin told the truth, I woke up around 4 o'clock. Shen Qinghan was surprised, why so early? Lin Zikin, I was startled awake by a dream. Upon hearing this, Shen Qinghan immediately perked up, you were startled awake by a dream? What dream? Tell me about it. Lin Zikin quickly organized his words and soon summarized the contents of the dream, briefly telling Shen Qinghan. Shen Qinghan's face filled with disbelief, you're saying you dreamt of the abyss and encountered a group of abyssal giant butterflies that transferred origin force to you. Lin Zikin, the origin force is real, my sea of consciousness now contains quite a few source crystals, all condensed in the dream. As for the abyss and abyssal giant butterflies, those are just my guesses right now. I'm not sure if it was really the abyss, nor am I sure if those crimson giant butterflies were truly abyssal giant butterflies. After saying that, he added, I suspect that the reason both your parents and my parents' seas of consciousness are completely made of source crystals is probably related to that dream. Shen Qinghan's brows slightly raised, are you saying they often have the dream you had last night, so their sea of consciousness ends up being entirely source crystals? Lin Zikin, that's my guess, but to be sure, we'll have to wait until my parents wake up and ask them. Shen Qinghan pursed her lips, if your parents and mine are hidden experts, then they definitely won't tell us the truth. Lin Zikin laughed, I actually hope they are hidden experts, that way, we won't have to worry about their safety in the future, and maybe they can even give us a lift in life. Shen Qinghan, initially feeling mixed, laughed at Lin Zikin's words. That made sense. If their parents were hidden experts, then they could rely on their parents in the future. No need to exert any effort. Blissfully becoming a useless second generation. How wonderful! Thinking this, Shen Qinghan suddenly felt frisky and stretched her fair little foot towards Lin Zikin, cooing softly, Daddy, it's not breakfast time yet, want to bond a bit more as father and daughter. Upon hearing that, Lin Zikin couldn't take it anymore and said, Shen Wuhang, I think you are becoming dirtier. Shen Qinghan pretended to be coy, don't all guys like it when girls get dirty in bed? Lin Zikin, well, that is true. Shen Qinghan then pushed Lin Zikin down, straddled him, and said, enough talk, let's make it quick before Aunt Xin gets up to make breakfast. Lin Zikin had no objections, agreeing to make it quick. But his robust physique simply didn't allow for a quick battle. An hour later, Lin Zikin and Shen Qinghan emerged from the room, fully satisfied. By that time, Zhang Wangzhen had already prepared breakfast in the kitchen and was now carrying a pot of spirit fish porridge into the living room. The tiny Lin Ziying, bouncing along at Zhang Wangzhen's side, followed suit, her large, watery eyes fixated on the pot filled with porridge, drooling uncontrollably as she looked on eagerly. Mom, let me help you carry it. Lin Zikin quickly stepped forward and offered. Zhang Wangzhen replied irritably, I'm almost at the table with it, no need for you to carry it. If you really want to take care of your mom, you should get up early tomorrow morning and make breakfast, letting your mom sleep in. No problem, I'll take care of breakfast tomorrow. Lin Zikin agreed without hesitation. Zhang Wangzhen and Shen Qinghan were both the women he loved most in this world. Not to mention making breakfast tomorrow, he would gladly take up the responsibility every day in the future. After all, this was his birth mother, the woman from whom he drew his first nourishment. Move aside, don't block the way, go and wake your dad up to come and have some porridge. Zhang Wangzhen urged him. Seeing her mom stop and not move, Lin Ziying also frowned, reaching her hand towards the pot and whimpering softly. She was urging her mom to hurry and bring the pot to the table so she could have her porridge. Seeing this, Lin Zikin thought his little sister was irresistibly cute. As he stepped aside, he also took the chance to scoop his sister into his arms, laughing as he poked her chubby, round cheeks with his finger. MMM. 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 Lin Ziying grumbled in dissatisfaction, and seeing that Lin Zikin wouldn't put her down, her little face fell and she opened her mouth to let out a dragon-like roar, about to burst into tears. Seeing his sister about to cry, Lin Zikin once again had a thought and took out a spirit fruit from the storage space, offering it to her mouth. As soon as she saw the spirit fruit, Lin Ziying immediately calmed down and quietly grabbed the fruit to stuff into her mouth. Lin Zikin poked his sister's chubby cheek and said with a loving smile, "Such a little foodie." After saying this, he carried his sister off towards the room to wake their father, Lin Yanzheng. Shen Qinghan, feeling awkward to follow, stayed in the living room to help Zhang Wangzhen with the bowls and chopsticks. "Qinghan, how far have you and Xiao Chen progressed?" Seizing a moment when it was just the two of them, Zhang Wangzhen quietly asked Shen Qinghan. Feeling very embarrassed, Shen Qinghan still obediently spoke the truth, "Everything couples do, we've pretty much done." Upon hearing this, Zhang Wangzhen immediately beamed, nodding with satisfaction and clicking her tongue, "It seems Xiao Chen is quite capable, not disappointing me as a mother." Shen Qinghan, hearing these words, was terribly shy and silently bowed her head to serve the porridge. Before long, including Shen Qinghan, the family of 5 sat together in the living room for breakfast. Midway through, Lin Zikin asked his parents if they had ever had any strange dreams, like dreaming of themselves in utter darkness, seeing giant butterflies that scattered specks of light. As expected, both parents replied in surprise, admitting they often had such dreams. "Son, how did you know? Your dad and I never mentioned these strange dreams to you, did we?" Zhang Wangzhen asked curiously. Lin Zikin said, "Because I've had that dream too." Upon hearing this, his parents looked disbelief, unable to believe that their son had also experienced this eerie dream. After steadying her emotions, Zhang Wangzhen asked curiously, "What's the environment like in your dream? Is it a pitch-black space where you can't see your hand in front of your face?" "Yes." Lin Zikin nodded. Zhang Wangzhen also nodded, saying, "You've only recent had this dream, but after you have it a few more times, you'll find that the view expands, and you can see a lot of things clearly." During the porridge, asked about butterfly dreams to parents. They occasionally dreamed about it. P.S. Setting the bowls, seeking monthly support and recommendations. Lin Zikin. Chapter 468, 269, Nine-Tailed Fox Demon. New achievement, mutually beneficial symbiosis. "Mom, what did that steel in the dream exactly look like? Can you describe the details? I'll see if I can draw it." Lin Zikin took a piece of drawing paper and a charcoal pencil, asking excitedly. He felt as though he had glimpsed a secret why he was so powerful. His own strength, it seemed, could not be separated from the abyss of the origin land. Now, he couldn't wait to witness everything in the dream and couldn't stand to wait for the dreams to show it slowly. "Let me think, let me see how to describe the details to you." After speaking, Zhang Wangzhen fell into reminiscence, organizing her thoughts on how to describe the appearance of the steel. About half a minute later, she organized her thoughts and began to describe. The steel was very square, and also very thick. By estimate, it was more than 2 meters long and over a meter wide, looking like a coffin. The color of the steel was grey with 4 characters on top, in black. The font seemed to resemble Kai style, but it appeared more scribbled. Also, the edges of the steel were covered with lots of strange moss, which was golden yellow and emitted specks of golden light, looking quite fantastical. Oh yes, the ground beneath the steel was as hard as cement. Zhang Wangzhen described the coffin she saw with utmost detail, trying not to miss any particulars. Over 10 minutes later, Lin Zikin finished a rough sketch and placed it before Zhang Wangzhen, asking, "Mom, does the steel look like this?" Zhang Wangzhen glanced at it. "It's quite similar, but there are still some differences in the details." At that moment, Shen Qinghan on the side held up her own drawing paper for display, asking, "Aunt Xin, what about the one I drew?" Just as Lin Zikin had been drawing, she had been drawing as well. She had always liked drawing since she was young, which was one of her few talents as a child, and she was very confident in her drawing skills. Zhang Wangzhen turned her head to look at her drawing, her eyes lighting up immediately. Yes, it looks just like this. Han Han, the stele you drew is almost identical to the one I saw in my dream. Indeed, when it comes to drawing, my darling Han Han is much more impressive. Zhang Wangzhen lavished praise on Shen Qinghan without stinginess, addressing her affectionately as my Han Han, treating her like her own daughter. Shen Qinghan felt embarrassed being praised so much, but she was delighted inside. Being able to outshine Lin Zikan in some areas made her feel very happy. As if she was no longer just riding on coattails. Lin Zikan glanced over Shen Qinghan's drawing and found it indeed better than his. It just goes to show, no matter how strong one's Tianren wisdom root is, without putting some thought into it, one can still not match someone born with talent and who puts in effort. In the following days, Lin Zikan spent most of his time pestering Lin Yanzheng and Zhang Wangzhen, constantly inquiring about everything they saw in their dreams. After many days of effort, with Shen Qinghan's help, he nearly replicated the environments of his parents' dreams on paper. Upon comparison, Lin Zikan found that the environments in both of his parents' dreams were exactly the same. There was the stele engraved with Child of the Abyss. There were various buildings made of stone that emitted an ancient and weathered aura. There were also the biologically improbable abyss butterflies. Considering the presence of these buildings, Lin Zikan deduced that this so-called abyss of the life-forbidden zone might be an ancient civilization lost in the sands of time. Days passed one after the other. During this period, Lin Zikan continued observing his parents to see if having their sea of consciousness fully comprised of source crystals made them unique in any way. After observing intently for over 10 days, he found nothing unusual. Having their entire sea of consciousness as source crystals seemed to have no obvious impact on Lin Yanzheng and Zhang Wangzhen. Strange, with such a large chunk of source crystal in my parents' sea of consciousness, they should be very strong by all accounts, so why do they seem so ordinary? Lin Zikan was utterly puzzled and very troubled. For, since a bit of source crystal had formed in his own sea of consciousness, he was acutely aware of an extremely potent energy within his body. This special energy, if not unexpected, would be the origin force. With this additional origin force in his sea of consciousness, his biological level that had just surpassed the rare 8th order threshold, had jumped straight to great perfection of the rare 8th order, barely a step away from the rare 9th order. This was a very straightforward enhancement. Yet, his parents, who owned a source crystal larger than an iceberg, showed no signs of any enhancement, which was too strange. Wait a minute. Could it be that the source crystal in their sea of consciousness only served a nurturing function? That is, the reason my sister and I were so exceptional from birth was because of the enhancement from the source crystal in our parents' sea of consciousness? But no, this explanation still feels forced, and many things don't add up. Lin Zikan's thoughts ran wild as he struggled to find a reasonable explanation. Unfortunately, after a long time thinking, he couldn't find an explanation that satisfied him. Time flew by. The time for the home visit was nearly over. It was time to return to the origin land. The day before going back to the origin land, Lin Zikan visited Yuan Dongji and Lu Juanwu with Shen Qinghan. On their way to the Yuan family, the most prominent family in Nanjiang, Lin Zikan asked Shen Qinghan beside him, having slept at my place for so long, have you never once dreamed about the abyss butterfly? During this home visit, Lin Zikan had had 3 dreams related to the abyss butterfly. Each time, the source crystals in his sea of consciousness grew a bit more. Chapter 469, 269, Nine-Tailed Fox Demon. New achievement, mutually beneficial symbiosis, _2. By the 3rd attempt, the origin force inside had undergone a qualitative change, allowing his biological level to successfully evolve from rare 8th order great perfection to rare 9th order. Lin Zikan cared very much about why Shen Qinghan, who had been sharing a bed with him, had never once dreamt about the abyssal butterfly. Never had one, not even once. Facing Lin Zikin's question, Shen Qinghan shook his head in response. After hearing this answer, Lin Zikin fell into deep thought. Was the appearance of this dream unrelated to the location? Was it only something that he and his parents experienced? Could no one else have this dream? Well, there was also the nearly 3-month-old sister who might have had it. About an hour later, Lin Zikin and Shen Qinghan successfully arrived at the leading family of Nanjiang Province, the Yuan family. The two had thought that this great family would have an extremely luxurious palace. But upon entering, they found it was an ancient-looking mansion. Everything inside looked very retro. However, Lin Zikin and Shen Qinghan didn't pay much attention to these details. They entered the mansion and, following the butler, proceeded into a room, where they saw Yuan Dongji, unconscious. The usually imposing Yuan Dongji now appeared as a ghastly pale vegetative person, motionlessly lying in bed. And the usually flirtatious Lu Juanwu was now sitting by the bed, carefully looking after Yuan Dongji. Lin Zikin stepped forward to check on Yuan Dongji's condition. He released his spiritual power. It smoothly infiltrated her body, roaming everywhere. He carefully inspected every corner. After a thorough examination, Lin Zikin found that Yuan Dongji's soul had sustained severe damage, visibly marked by many cracks, which was horrifying to behold. With such severe damage, no wonder she had become a vegetative person, unconscious. Had Yuan Dongji not been a rare-level fighter, she probably would have succumbed to brain death already. Lin Zi, how did the examination go? Seeing Lin Zikin retract his spiritual power, Shen Qinghan immediately asked, unable to wait. Lin Zikin shook his head. Principal Yuan's injury is to the soul, which touches upon the areas I know nothing about. I am powerless. If Yuan Dongji had merely sustained severe physical injuries, Lin Zikin would still be able to treat her with qi blood transfusion. But Yuan Dongji's injury was to the soul, which he truly could not treat. In that case, Shen Qinghan felt somewhat disappointed. Later, Lin Zikin also helped to check Lu Juanwu and discovered his soul was also injured, which he could not treat either. Seeing that he couldn't help, Lin Zikin didn't insist. He and Shen Qinghan simply cared for the two for a while and soon left the Yuan family. The Yuan family themselves had an epic-level expert. If something even an epic-level expert couldn't accomplish, how could he possibly do it? When leaving, the Yuan family's patriarch, a powerful epic-level expert, invited Lin Zikin and Shen Qinghan to have dinner. Lin Zikin wasn't interested and politely made an excuse to decline. Tomorrow they were to return to the origin land. In this last night, he and Shen Qinghan just wanted to be home with their parents. After all, once they entered the origin land, it would be at least 3 months before they could see their parents again. Although Lin Zikin wasn't as home-loving as Shen Qinghan, he still missed his parents deeply after not seeing them for 3 months. Time flew swiftly. In the blink of an eye, the next morning had arrived. Lin Zikin and Shen Qinghan got up early and made a rich breakfast for their parents and sister. Their culinary skills surpassed those of Zhang Wangzhen. The porridge, soy milk, and buns they made kept their parents and sister eating non-stop. Especially Lin Ziying, who, with a spoon constantly shoving porridge into her mouth in her right hand and also stuffing a bun into her mouth with her left hand, looked like a beggar who had been starved for days on the street. Lin Zikin watched his foodie sister across from him, and while he felt that it was incongruous, he also found it adorable. The incongruity lay in the fact that his sister was just a 3-month-old baby girl, yet her appetite surpassed that of an adult. The adorableness was in how naive Ziying looked while eating, her cheeks puffed out like crayon Shinchan from Sakura country. Husband, look how happy our baby eats, it seems our son and Han Han's cooking really is better than mine, Zhang Wangzhen said. Zhang Wangzhen watched her incessantly eating daughter, her face still graceful and full of doting smiles. Lin Ziying was the second daughter she had given birth to after turning 40, and she doted extremely on this young little girl. While munching on a bun, Lin Yanzheng nodded in agreement, saying, "Their cooking skills indeed seem a bit better than yours, it's a case of the student surpassing the master." Hearing this response, Zhang Wangzhen's face darkened instantly. She could admit her cooking was inferior to her sons and future daughter-in-laws, but as her husband, Lin Yanzheng shouldn't have. Seeing her face turn grim, Lin Yanzheng realized he had misspoken. He immediately shut his mouth and silently bowed his head to continue eating his bun. Lin Zikan and Shen Qinghan couldn't help but laugh at this scene. When someone belittles themselves, as a listener, it's best not to agree by saying right but to say, "No way, that's not true at all." Zhang Wangzhen didn't stay upset for long and soon regained her normal expression. She then turned to Shen Qinghan, "Han Han, you're staying overnight here with Xiao Chen every day, your parents don't mind." While sipping on her porridge, Shen Qinghan replied, "My dad has some objections, but my mom doesn't, she can't wait for me to sleep with Xiao Chen every day." On hearing this, Zhang Wangzhen immediately beamed with a smile, "That's like your mom, thinking exactly like me." She, just like Su Meng, couldn't wait for Lin Zikan and Shen Qinghan to sleep together daily, hoping to become a grandmother sooner. Nowadays, besides spending 2 hours a day typing, she had lots of idle time. For this reason, she earnestly hoped for another baby in the house to keep her busy. After finishing breakfast, Lin Zikan and Shen Qinghan played with Lin Ziying for a while before they left the house and flew toward the capital city, returning to the origin land to shine brightly. On their way to the capital city, the couple chose not to take a military helicopter, but instead chose to expend spiritual power for flight control to practice their flying skills. Soon, the two of them flew from Shanghai University to the headquarters of the military district in capital city. After landing, they proficiently verified their identities and went through the biological passage to return to the long-missed origin land. Back in the origin land, Lin Zikan immediately went to the abyss behind the city, wanting to see from the outside if this so-called abyss, the life-forbidden zone, was really the same as the pitch-black space he dreamt about in his dreams. He wanted to verify. Unfortunately, before he even got close to the periphery of the abyss, he was stopped by someone. The abyss was very dangerous, even legendary level experts did not dare to ensure they could come back alive. And Lin Zikan, although a genius, still only ranked as a rare level biological being. The general guarding the area behind the city and adjacent to the abyss did not think Lin Zikan would survive in the abyss, thus did not permit him to enter. Seeing that the abyss was off limits, Lin Zikan did not insist. He only thought to himself that once he reaches the legendary level, he would explore the abyss. In the blink of an eye, several days had passed. That morning, as dawn just broke, Lin Zikan and Shen Qinghan left their dorm early, flying towards the direction of the city gate. Their strength had now reached the rare level category, allowing them to freely detach from the alien human level genius team and choose to act independently. Under this premise, Lin Zikan decided to join the city's survey team to venture outside the city. The city's survey team was primarily responsible for surveying the landscape of the origin land to expand the understanding of its range. To join the survey team, one had to be at least a rare level or above. The team leader himself was an epic level being, and among them, he was on the stronger side. After all, exploring new maps requires substantial strength, otherwise, one might end up in the belly of a beast shortly after entering risky areas. Has everyone gathered yet? Seeing the time to depart was nearing, the survey team's captain shouted in a loud voice. P.S. Pleading, asking for monthly pass recommendations. Chapter 470, 270, Nine-Tailed Fox Demon. New achievement, Mutually Beneficial Symbiosis. On the northeast side of Green Hill's ancient mountain. That was the direction leading to the eastern region of Origin Land. The moment Sujuja left Green Hill's ancient mountain, she hurried in that direction at full speed without stopping. In the eastern region, there was an old lover of Mountain Lord Sumai Xiao. This old lover was a mythical level creature in the eastern region, with exceptionally strong power. If Mountain Lord Sumai Xiao's old lover could come to the rescue in time, the current crisis facing Green Hill's ancient mountain would be easily resolved. Buzz! Suddenly, a sound of air breaking rang out. At the moment the sound occurred, a man shrouded in black qi appeared ahead, blocking Sujuja's path. "Little fox, where do you think you're going?" The man, with a corpse-like face, asked Sujuja, emitting an extremely powerful aura of a living being. Faced with this Cheng Yaojin who suddenly appeared on her way to the eastern region, Sujuja slightly furrowed her brows, not expecting to be intercepted by an alien from the land of Oblivion. It seemed that the sudden attack from Sun Moon Sacred Land and Land of Oblivion had been long planned. Very well prepared. Sujuja just thought about this briefly and didn't dwell on it too much. The moment her thoughts ended, her captivating eyes immediately flickered with a hint of purple light. With the emergence of the purple light, the man blocking the road ahead was instantly hit by an illusion technique, entering a chaotic illusion. Seeing the illusion technique working, Sujuja immediately sped past the man, not daring to delay a moment. She could sense that the aura emitting from the man was extremely strong, reaching the epic level, and his overall strength was stronger than hers. She wasn't sure how long her illusion technique would affect the man and needed to leave quickly before he broke free from the illusion. Mountain Lord Sumai Xiao's power was limited, just relying on Sumai Xiao alone to defend Green Hill's ancient mountain would not hold for long. Sujuja needed to rush to the eastern region quickly to seek help from Sumai Xiao's old lover. The spiritual power technique of Green Hill's Fox clan is nothing special. As Sujuja was sprinting at full strength, a familiar male voice eerily sounded from under a tree on the side. Hearing this familiar male voice, Sujuja couldn't help but change her expression slightly. She vigilantly looked in the direction of the voice, and what came into view was a corpse-like man. It was none other than the man whom she had just subjected to her illusion technique. What's happening? Didn't he get caught in my illusion technique? How could he silently appear here? Sujuja frowned tightly, her pretty face full of confusion. Seeing her confusion, the man teased like a cat playing with a mouse, "Is there a possibility that I didn't get caught in your illusion technique, but you got caught in mine? Was I caught in an illusion technique?" Hearing this, Sujuja's heart sank. She immediately sacrificed her essence blood to boost her spiritual power. As her spiritual power intensified, she saw cracks begin to appear and multiply in her field of vision. These cracks grew more extensive and quickly spread across her entire vision until her vision shattered like broken glass. After her vision shattered, Sujuja looked around and found she hadn't moved at all. She was still in the spot where the man had intercepted her. This meant she had been caught in the man's illusion technique since encountering him, turned into a lamb to the slaughter. Deeply aware of her predicament, she didn't hesitate for a moment, steeled her heart, and directly sacrificed most of her essence blood to the sea of consciousness, raising her spiritual power to the epic level. The man felt her sudden surge in spiritual power, but his heart remained unfluctuating, still deadpan as he said, "Why struggle? I didn't plan to take your life. If you're willing to be my cauldron, I won't harm a single hair on you." The fox women of Green Hill's ancient mountain, famous for their dual cultivation skills. In the world of Origin Land, no male living being wouldn't desire to have a fox woman as a cauldron. "Humph, you ugly freak, do you even qualify?" Sujuja, a complete stickler for appearance, coldly insulted him before immediately unleashing a spiritual attack on the man with her boosted spiritual power. The man's face, which had a hint of a smile, instantly turned gloomy and filled with murderous intent upon hearing Sujuja criticize his appearance. He made his decision. He no longer wanted Sujuja as a cauldron. Rather, he planned to refine her into a yin corpse, to keep by his bed for constant use. Living beings might insult, but a soul-dissolved yin corpse never did, it would do whatever he wanted. "Die!" the man bellowed with a trace of anger. The next second, the black chi swirling around him turned incredibly dense, forming into pitch-black arrows that shot out ferociously, aiming directly at Sujuja ahead. The arrows were so fast they tore through the air, leaving huge cracks in the void behind them. Unable to dodge such terrifying arrows, Sujuja was immediately pierced through by the arrows. In the moment she was pierced, the vitality within her began to drain swiftly, and her face quickly turned deathly pale, her entire body losing all color. Boom! A loud explosion suddenly sounded. At the moment her vitality was exhausted, Sujuja's body suddenly exploded, scattering fox fur all over the sky and a withered tail lying quietly on the ground. Escaping by severing your own tail. The man stared at the fox tail on the ground, emotionlessly muttering to himself.